Welcome to Tell Us Something. Thanks for being here. This presentation is being recorded by Missoula Community Access Television as part of a media assistance grant donated to Tell Us Something by MCAT. Tell Us Something acknowledges that we are on the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. You hear this at events all the time. What does it mean? Who cares, right? I've been thinking about it a lot. Why do we say it? Most of the time, it's white folks that are saying it. Are we trying to make ourselves feel better? What are we doing here? When I came to Montana, to the west, from Ohio, which Ohio is the land of the Kaskiyia and Erie tribes, at least the part where I lived, I wore a Cleveland Indians hat. Some of you know this former name of this baseball team. And the mascot allegedly was to celebrate the native peoples. It's a pretty racist mascot if you haven't seen it. And I was traveling out with a traveling companion who was admonishing me about my hat. And I dismissed her out of hand. I was wrong to do that. And I started thinking more about that as I started thinking about land acknowledgements. And why I do them is not just to honor the people whose land we stole, not us particularly, but everyone in here who's white, our ancestors stole the land. We can't do anything about that, but we can admit it, honor the people who live with us and work with us and recreate with us, who are native to this land. So again, I say we are on Salish and Kootenai land. We take this moment to honor them and the stories that they share with us. Thank you to our title sponsor, The Good Food Store, and for their support in helping people get their stories heard. Thank you also to our stewardship sponsor, Missoula Electric Co-op. We have recently implemented a stewardship program that allows us to give away tickets to individuals and groups who may not otherwise have the opportunity to come to cultural events for whatever reason. So thank you to the Missoula Electric Co-op for that. Thank you to our storyteller sponsor, the Clearwater Credit Union. Because of them, we are able to pay our storytellers. And to our accessibility sponsor, Garden Mother, who allows us to have American Sign Language interpreters. So thank you to those sponsors. When you patronize those businesses, please thank them for their support of Tell Us Something and live storytelling in Missoula. And thank you all for being here tonight. It is one of my favorite things to do in the world, hang out with you and listen to our community tell stories. So I want to ask, how many people have been here before? All right. So I see quite a few hands that aren't raised. So for our new friends, welcome. And what you're going to see tonight are people from your community sharing stories. Tell Us Something recruits people from the local community. We put out a call for storytellers. And actually, we have a call for storytellers now for the next event, which is happening December 15th at the Wilma. The theme for that night is, It's the Little Things. So we put out the call for storytellers, and with the theme, they call a pitch line, and our deaf friends, they can email and say, hey, I want to do this. We've had deaf folks tell stories. That's been pretty fun. And then we have a selection committee, and the programming committee listens to all of the story pitches. Usually we get 20 or 30 pitches for 8 storytelling slots. Excuse me. And then I work with each storyteller one-on-one. There's a group workshop, and I make myself available for as much time as they need to work on their stories. So they've worked hard on these stories, and I hope that you give them the respect that they deserve. 8 storytellers tonight will have 10 minutes to tell their true personal story from memory on the theme, letting go. We'll have 4 storytellers, then a 10-minute intermission, and when we come back from intermission, we have the audience participation program. And that is, as you came in, some of you were handed an audience participation sheet where you can write your own story anonymously, and some of those are selected and then read on the stage. So, after that, 4 more storytellers, and off we go. If you miss an event for some reason, it gets sold out. For example, we have over 900 seats sold tonight. Not everyone's here yet. The Wilma cannot hold all of us, right? The Wilma can only hold 825. So those tickets went on sale today. You can get them at the logjampresents.com website or at the Top Hat box office. Anyway, getting ahead of myself. So drop off your stories in the boxes out in the lobby. Stop by and see Rachel, board member, at the merch table. She'll be out there during intermission. Let's see what else. Susan, you were right. I don't need to read all of this. I ripped through most of that stuff. Okay. The last time I was at a performance in this theater was for an album release from my friend Lee Rizzo, who's here tonight. You can get her record at Rock and Rudy's. It is awesome. It is. Someone else has the same record. And I saw her shortly after the performance, and I said, I'm going to shoplift that thing you did. And she said, you should. So let's try it. This thing that Lee did. So let's all take a deep breath together. And on the exhale, hum. Good. Let's do it one more time. At every event, I say, it is important to come together and share stories and support one another. And it's true. It helps us learn more about ourselves and about each other and our community. So thank you for being here. You came to listen. Let the listening begin. Know this, some stories contain adult language with adult themes. Our first storyteller tonight is Susan Schenker. Susan Schenker is originally from Houston and is a retired educator. She and her husband, Mark, have 3 adult children, 1 grandson, and 1 very spoiled puppy. Now living happily ever after in Missoula, Susan enjoys hiking, trail running, yoga, and remember, she's from Texas. Surprisingly, she loves long winter evenings. Please welcome Susan Schenker.
In the spring of 2009, I am sitting in the waiting room of a full-service car wash. As I'm chomping on my complimentary popcorn, an attractive, well-dressed woman walks in and sits down. We strike up a conversation, and it's not long before that conversation turns to my health. It is clear by looking at me that I am not well. I have a headscarf, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, that ashy moon face. I'm in treatment for stage 3 breast cancer. I've had the removal of my right breast and all the lymph nodes under my arm. I've had 6 months of chemo, and I'm heading into radiation. And as we chat, the woman reveals that she is a breast cancer survivor who's had a double mastectomy. And she asked me whether I've made a decision yet about what to do about the right breast. And I said I hadn't. The doctors have been talking about reconstruction, but I really hadn't made any solid decisions. She became very enthusiastic and animated. She said she had had reconstruction and she was thrilled with the results. She talked some about the surgery, and then she stopped and looked at me and said, "Would you like to see them?" And I went, okay. So we go into the bathroom at the car wash, where she pulls up her blouse and her bra and reveals these beautiful breasts. They are round and symmetrical. The skin has been pulled to look like nipples. They have expert tattooing. They're works of art. She shows me the scarring. She talks a little bit more about the reconstruction. And then she looks at me and she said, "Would you like to touch them?" And I said, "Okay." So I touched them. They felt very normal, I guess. We wrapped up our conversation and got in our separate clean cars, drove away. I never knew her name. So as I'm driving off, it hits me. Oh my God, I'm an educator and a mother of 2. What if somebody walked in? And then my next thought was, how incredibly generous. I'd have doctors talking at me about what comes next, but I didn't really have a sense about what that meant or what it could be. And then it dawned on me, oh, wait a minute. I could actually get bigger, better breast out of this deal. I'd never even considered that before. So I was excited. I call the surgeon, go in for a meeting, enthusiastically start talking about what I want and what I'd seen, and he's nodding. He said, "Well, we could do that. Let's talk about what it would mean for you." He said, "First of all, you've had almost all your tissue removed from your right side. So any kind of reconstruction is going to involve moving tissue from some other part of your body and also an implant." And he said, "We don't really have enough in your stomach or hips, so we'd be talking about moving tissue around from your back to build out the breast." And I'm nodding. And he said, "And also, we'd have to wait till after radiation and your skin heals, and then skin's not very elastic, so there's a series of procedures to stretch the skin." And by this time, my jaw's dropped, and I am feeling, no pun intended, deflated. He talks about the fact that I would lose quite a bit of mobility in my right arm as well. So I leave that appointment and give it a deep thought, talk it over with my husband, my friends, my family, and come to the decision not to have the reconstructive surgery. So that left option 2, which is a prosthetic breast. So I go to the store in the cancer center, which kind of has the ambiance of an upscale lingerie shop. And the woman is she's lovely, and she takes all my measurements and brings out the prosthetic breast, which I start to refer to as my faux breast, and the accompanying bra. Now this bra is industrial strength. It's big wide strap, sturdy, and all of that serves a purpose, right? It keeps the faux breast firmly in place. So I take all that stuff home and I try it on with my clothes, and I'm immediately frustrated because some part of that bra is hanging out with no matter what I put on. So I sit there and I think about it. I think, you know what? I'm a small-breasted woman. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just get my old bra, and I'm going to use that. I'll just pop the faux breast in, pull the little strap tight. It's going to be great. Fast forward a number of months later, I'm a principal at an elementary school, and it's pajama day. I am in my tasteful 2-piece red flannel pajamas. It's that Friday before the winter break. The building's abuzz with parents and parties, and I'm flitting around the classroom. And I walk by the 5th grade hallway, and as I look in, a group of kids is getting ready to start a game of Twister. So, Miss Sheeker, will you come play Twister with us? Yeah, I'm game, let's do it. So we have a rollicking game of Twister. It's great. Leave the classroom, finish out the day. Buses pull away, and I see the 5th grade teacher, she's a first-year teacher, usually pretty direct and enthusiastic in her communication, approaching me, and she could not look me in the eye. And she's hemming and she's hawing, and she says, Miss Schinker, I think I have something that belongs to you. She reaches into her coat pocket, pulls out my faux breast, which apparently had plopped on the Twister mat somewhere between left hand red and right foot green or whatever. Luckily, no kids were harmed in any of this. I was mortified. But I wasn't totally surprised, because that same faux breast had popped out of my bathing suit in a hot tub in Santa Fe on a romantic getaway with my husband. It just sort of percolated on top. He grabbed it quickly before anyone could see. So I decided that the stars were aligning, and I just had to be a big girl and wear the big bra and get on with it. And I did that for many, many years. And then in 2019, we retired here to Missoula and quickly settled into the relaxed outdoor lifestyle and all that good stuff. And I found that over time, I was rarely using the bra or the breast. Most of the time, I was either in a sports bra or pajamas, and then during 2020, who wore a bra ever anyway? So just kind of got out of the habit. And not long ago, I was cleaning out my closet, and I tossed them. And it wasn't some big gesture or big, I don't know, symbolic move. It was just a logical step in a process. And when I think about that process of going from magical thinking of bigger, better breast to embracing my one-breastedness, certainly having a loving spouse and family, and certainly a sense of humor has been pretty critical. But what I've had most of all is time. I've had a good long time, almost 14 years. And, okay. But as a long-term survivor, I am painfully aware that not everybody gets this time. And so it is enough to stand here as a one-breasted woman.
Thank you, Susan. Next up, Margie Cates. Margie Cates is a Missoula born and raised. She's a singer, a writer, and a comedian. She has appeared on stages all over Missoula as well as New Orleans. She even sang the national anthem at a New Orleans Saints game. She lived and worked there for 5 years. You can find Margie riding her bike around town, practicing Whitney Houston riffs. Please welcome Margie Cates.
I was living in New Orleans, a place where music is a living, breathing thing. The city is wild and alive. There are little eddies of despair around every corner. Trumpet sound blooms in the night. My friends and I were wild and broken and beautiful, and we didn't care. We rolled ourselves in glitter, went out dancing in the streets, hung from balconies, and made art. And we all knew how to hustle the poor bastards who came to our fair city. We adorned ourselves in feathers and veils. But after 5 years, I was struggling. I kept fainting, and no one knew why. I had vertigo. My skull was like a swarm of bees. Pain would come hot in the middle of the night. I had muscle cramps, and I couldn't eat. So I went to doctors. I waited months to see specialists of brain and heart and pain, and no one knew what was wrong with me. So I came home to Missoula, Montana in the winter of 2020 to live with my parents and see doctors. I was on this terrible diet. I was like, I couldn't have caffeine or carbs or dairy. It was horrible. I was cat-cowing myself in and out of pain every morning. I was seeing doctors. I was seeing therapists. I had no chance. Like, I just had to heal. I was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. The body keeps the score, and boy, is she pissed. Oh yeah, some of you read the book, cool. And I was also diagnosed with autism. I know you're confused. I'm a girl, I can talk, I'm not holding a Rubik's Cube. It's backstage. We're funny too. But the thing about trauma is that it's defined as anything that's too much, too fast, or too little in too much time, essentially. And that kind of describes my experience at Good Food Store at any given time, 6 p.m. But really, this thing with trauma, my body had spent its whole life finding ways to numb and dissociate, and the fainting was my body screaming at me. And if you don't know what dissociation means, it means it's like when you're in a car with someone who talks too much, and you like kind of float out of your body so you don't have to be there anymore. Yeah, and that's dissociation. See, we've all done it. It's very healthy until you do it for 12 years. My trauma happened to me in Missoula, Montana, in my college dorm. It happened in recording studios over and over again. And it happened to me in New Orleans, in my house. This story is not about those men. This is my story. A chronic pain doctor told me my nervous system was turned up too high, that my body was sending ambulances and fire trucks to places that were no longer on fire. He said, until you learn how to feel safe in your body, you will always be in pain. And I said, safe, I'm a woman, don't tell me to feel safe. But that's called being triggered. And yeah, it felt like a death sentence. When I was in New Orleans, I was gigging constantly. I was always hustling, I was always going, and this thing happens to musicians. You could call it depression, but it's more of like an emptiness where you only feel whole when you're on stage, and you only feel like a person when the audience is reflecting something back at you. And so the audience applauds, and you're overflowing. I mean, you kind of feel like a phony because you don't believe in love, but you keep singing about it. But you're overflowing, and then you come home to your cat shit apartment with stale cigarette smoke in your hair, and there's cocaine on the table that your roommate left out again. And you feel emptier than ever before. But I kept hustling, I kept gigging, I kept trying, thinking that the next gig, the next song would take away that feeling. I was home, stuck in my body with no gigs, a broken body, and nothing left to give. So I waited in the darkness. I was still. I cried, I slept, I talked to my mom, and I thought, it doesn't matter if I ever perform again. It doesn't matter if I ever sing again. I let go. And something amazing happened. Music came back to me. Like, it started with poems at first, like ones I had to write and ones I had to read, and then I started listening to gospel music. And Jesus is great, he's fine, he's a very nice man. But something about these songs, they're about being helpless and humble and surrendering. So I surrendered, and I found myself singing while doing the dishes, and harmonizing while getting up in the morning, and I realized I wanted to die, but my voice didn't. And so I waited, and I let go more. In that darkness, little shoots of green came up, and the more I let go, I rebuilt my relationship with my body through EMDR therapy and polyvagal therapy. And I found a space inside myself that was pure and open and loving. And I had to let go of expectations of what someone who doesn't have autism, how they live. I let go of dreams that had kept me afloat for years. And the fainting stopped. The muscle spasms abated. My stomach moved. It was a miracle, okay? It really felt like a miracle. And, but more than that, I found a place where my voice could be in my body again. And my body was safe, my body was my home. And now whenever I sing, it comes from that sacred space, whether it's on a big stage with a band or just for my dog in the backyard. And I want you to know that if you have been hurt, you are not broken. They didn't destroy you. It's all still inside of you. You just have to open the door and feel all the grief and rage and terror, because it is terrifying to be embodied. But it's the key to community. It's the key to vulnerability. And it's the key to joy. And joy is our birthright. Many's the time I've been mistaken, and many times confused. Yes, and I've often felt forsaken, and certainly misused. Oh, but I'm all right, for I'm weary to my bones. Still one can expect to be bright and bon vivant, so far away from home, so far away from home. And I don't know a soul that's not been battered, don't have a friend who feels at ease. I don't know a dream that's not been shattered and driven to its knees. Oh, but I'm all right, can't be forever blessed. Still tomorrow's gonna be another working day, and I'm trying to get some rest. I'm just trying to get some rest.
Thank you, Margie. All right. Our next storyteller is Michael Lapointe. He is a regular guy trying to make it in an increasingly complicated world. He finds himself at 40 with dogs, kids, a wife, and a mortgage, not exactly sure how he arrived here or where he's going next. He believes that wherever you go, whatever you do, whenever you leave, leave it better than you found it. Please welcome Michael Lapointe.
You got it. All right. If you could have been at Camp Maitina YMCA summer camp in 1996, boy, you would have been blown away. Because I was the youngest camp counselor ever given his own cabin. I'm a big deal. And I was pretty good at it. Turns out I had a thing for communicating with younger people and wrangling and getting people moving in the right direction. And I took those skills. And in high school, I taught little kids how to swim. You know, blow bubbles in the pool, kick, talk to the fish, listen to the fish, get the parents involved. And I took those skills, and when I moved to New York City, I taught celebrity kids athletics. It was a weird gig, made a lot of money doing it. And never met the parents, but a lot of really badass nannies doing a kick-ass job raising these kids. But that was a non-disciplinary program. You weren't allowed to certainly you weren't allowed to yell, but you weren't allowed, there were no timeouts. The word no was not allowed with this audience. So when I finally made my way to Missoula, I swore, that's it, I am not working with children anymore. And after 3 months of unemployment, I was like, fuck it, that actually sounds pretty good. So I got a job working at this little school here called Spirit at Play. It's incredible. It's an incredible place. And my daughter just graduated from there, Penny. She's in kindergarten now. But my son, Teddy, he now goes to Spirit at Play. And moving here and getting that job, I felt like I had this thing. Like I would help kids figure out how to exist in the world, how to engage in the world in a way that was meaningful and made the world a better place. And I know some of those kids now. I manage a restaurant. I've hired 7 of them. And I'm like, I know you when you were 5, and you pick up trash. But the thing about all these gigs is, at the end of the day, they weren't my kids. I just send them along, and you know, it's a reflection of some other parent. It's not me. I do the best that I can, but whoever they turn out to be, however they are in the world, it's not me. It's them. And it's their parents. And now I have my own kids. And my daughter Penny, she decides what she can and can't do. And I want to be there saying, no, you can't touch that. It's hot. And I don't want to see you get burned. And so don't do it. And trust me, I've burned myself. And she says, she knows how to ride a bike. I already know how to ride a bike. I'm like, you do not know how to ride a bike, kid. But we sign up for this class, the Derailers program. And we show up, the little Strider bike, and she throws a fit. And I love biking, so I'm like, I'm not going to push her into this thing that she doesn't like. So I pick her up, and we get out of there. You don't want to bike? Let's not bike today. Let's just try it again next week. But throwing that fit works. So next week, it's an even bigger fit. And I'm like, yeah, let's not do this again. And I'm carrying her out, and I see this other parent who I hope's not here tonight, because I don't mean to... But it mattered to me, this other parent, he goes, oh, looks like Penny's got 2, Michael's got 0. I'm being judged because my kid doesn't want to bike, I get it. So winter comes along, and we're going to go to Discovery Ski Area. The only thing I love more than biking is skiing. That is where I'm at my most free. I love skiing, and boy, if my kids could ski, that would be incredible. And so Penny and I were driving down to Discovery, and she's in the back going, I already know how to ski. Like, kid, you don't know how to ski, and it's going to be rough because we've been through this. And lo and behold, we get to the parking lot, and that same family from Derailers, they also go to Discovery. And so we get up to the thing, we put her in her boots, and a good friend of mine told me, just keep plugging your kid with gummies all day long. So we're just feeding her. And we get up to the top, well, not the top, we get up to the bunny hill, and she can actually do it. She stands up, she points her toes, she can ski. She can't stop, but she can go. And like pizza ain't, and I could cry thinking of it now, because we get back on the chairlift, and I'm like so proud. And did all those other parents see what my kid just did? I'm like holding her, like, you're right, you can do it. But also in the back of my mind, I'm like, wait, now she thinks that she can just do stuff. Like, I didn't need that as a barometer for her abilities. So skiing's a success. We come back to Missoula. She still doesn't bike. She's at this wonderful preschool, and I get a video from one of her teachers, and it's her riding another kid's bike at school. It's Eleanor's bike. Penny wanted me to make sure that I tell everybody. She rode Eleanor's bike with no training wheels, no one holding her. I wasn't there, and I got to see this video, and I'm like, maybe she does. She can do it. And I bring her bike to school that day. Do you want to bike home? I was like, yeah. So put her helmet on, and I got this little ski backpack that has a harness on it so I can hold her upright. And we're coming down towards our house, and she's got it. And as she's going, I let go of her, and she maybe gets like 15 feet in front of me, and she yells, "Let go, Dad!" I was like, I already have, kid. And she crashes because she's a 5-year-old who doesn't know how to ride a bike. Oh. But in that moment, I was like, I'm not a reflection of this kid. She is her own person. It's not a house plant, you know? She lives in this house with me too. And she's gonna tell me what she can do, and she's gonna learn that the stove is hot, you know? I gotta make sure she keeps her eyes or do my best. But I don't get to decide what she's capable of. I gotta let go. I gotta let her be her own person, and I want to see what person she becomes. She can tell me. You tell me what you can do and who you are. That's what I got.
Hey, Mike. Thank you, Michael. I hope I did okay with that camera. Our next storyteller is Hazel Wright. Hazel is a 12-year-old who lives in Missoula. She has a younger brother and a dog. She enjoys playing ice hockey, mountain biking, and skateboarding. Hazel is attending Washington Middle School as a 7th grader. In her free time, she is curled up with a good book or watching Grey's Anatomy with her mom. Please welcome Hazel Wright.
I open my eyes and I'm staring at this lilac-colored ceiling of my bedroom. And I'm just thinking, should I get up? Should I just lay here? Should I pretend I'm asleep so I can get 20 seconds more of valuable rest? And I just lay there. And then my mom barges in, and she's like, Hazel, you need to get up now, I'm sorry. And she comes and she pokes my head and she goes, Hazel, I'm sorry. And then she goes, but it's a snow day. And for snow days, that was amazing because we got to stay home and play in the snow and just have fun, and we didn't have to make up schoolwork. So I jump out of bed with my ducky pajamas on and get a bowl of cereal, and I'm munching cereal, and my younger brother, Xander, he comes down the hallway and he goes, Hazel, we should go to the sledding hill. And we have a sledding hill that's maybe 6 blocks from our house. It's not the biggest sledding hill, but to us it was the world. So I'm like, yeah, I'm in. We start getting our snow stuff on. I'm getting on my purple snow pants, and Xander's just putting on whatever he thinks is necessary. It's not much. And we were standing in our garage waiting for the door to open with our little metal saucers by our sides. And we're about to step into the light. And our mom, she runs out of the house and she goes, guys, you forgot your helmets. And she plops my white little ski helmet on my head and Xander's green ski helmet on his. And then she's like, okay, you're good to go now. And so we start walking to the sledding hill. We're just trudging through the new snow. It's like, and our mom, she's somewhere behind us. And then the sledding hill. It's at the end of a cul-de-sac. And this cul-de-sac there's a couple houses to the side of it. There's usually cars parked around them. But all the cars, they move. They don't want to have kids sliding and hitting the cars. So we're hiking up this hill, and we get to the midway point. And the midway point is leveled off a little more, and Xander turns to me, and he goes, Hazel, it's the day. We're going to build that sledding jump. And he grabs a saucer full of snow, and he dumps it at my feet. And he goes, Hazel, start building. And I'm like, okay. And I start making this cheese wedge of a jump facing the cul-de-sac that's about to my 8-year-old height knees. And we're almost done with this jump, just one more saucer full of snow, and it's done. And we turn around and start walking up the hill, and I turn around to look at this beautiful jump, and this kid, can't be more than 3 years old, comes and sits on it. That beautiful jump that we just spent a good 5 minutes making. It's gone. And so we walk back our 3 steps down to where the jump used to be. Quick, rest in peace. And then we start to build another jump. And this one is bigger and better. It's about to my 8-year-old tall waist. And we're finishing up this jump. We've fenced off the area with some snow and our saucers. And Xander, he turns to me and he goes, Hazel, we're ready. And so he hikes to the top of the hill and he yells, Geronimo! And he jumps onto his knees and rockets down the hill. And he hits the jump and he flies. And he's soaring, and then he hits the snow. And he looks back at me and tumbles off. Full-on faceplant. And he turns back and he looks at me, double thumbs up, Hazel, I'm okay. And I'm like, okay, working up the courage, I got it, I'm okay, I can do this. And I jump on my little red saucer, butt down, and zoom down the hill. And I hit the jump, and I'm flying, and it's so amazing for all the people that jump like skis or bikes. It is just amazing. And then I hit the snow, and I'm okay. But so I start to turn, and so now I'm facing the jump. And I'm fine, though, but I'm fine. Xander's somewhere off to my now left, and I'm just thinking, that was pretty fun. I'll do it again. But then just clunk, 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 and it all goes black. And I open my eyes, or I think they're open, blink a couple times, and I'm like, okay. I don't know what happened, but I think I'm okay. And I hear my mom, and she goes, Hazel, 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 are you okay? Are you alive? Are you not decapitated? And I'm like mumbling a little bit, and I kind of try to paw my way the direction I came from. And then I see it, the light. The first thought I have is, did I die? Is this heaven? But no, it can't be because it smells awful. And I crawl into the light, and I stand up, and I just brush myself off, and I look to my mom, and she grabs my cheek, and she's inspecting me, and she goes, Hazel, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, Mom, I'm okay. And she's like, okay, heart attack of the day, got that over with. And she's like, okay, I think we should go now. It's okay. And I turn to her and I go, but I don't want to go. That was amazing. I want to do it again. And she turns to me and she goes, Hazel, you just got taco folded in half under the side of a pickup truck. And I turn around, and sure enough, this big gray diesel pickup truck is just chilling there. Like it totally didn't just get in the way of this beautiful moment. That was very rude. And so I'm like, fine, 8-year-old attitude. And we start trudging back home. Xander's he's throwing a fit because he didn't do anything wrong. He wants to keep sledding. And we're walking home, dragging my saucer. I'm just one arm crossed. My mom goes, okay, that was a bit too close. I don't think we're going to go back, Hazel. I look at her dead in the eyes with sadness and anger, and I'm like, why? Why'd you have to do this to me? I thought this was the best idea ever, and you just had to ruin it. How could you? And so we walk home. I open the door, greet my dogs, and start taking off all my gear. It's like purple snow pants, blue jacket, white helmet. And I look at the back of this white helmet that I've had since I started skiing. And on the back of it, there is a giant, deep gash where I slid under the truck, where my brains would have spilled out if I didn't listen to my mother. So, thank you, Mom. I'm alive today now.
Hazel Wright. Thank you, Hazel, and thank you to all of our storytellers so far tonight, and to our American Sign Language interpreters, and to all of our sponsors, which you're going to hear about here in just a second, right before intermission. Stewardship sponsor, the Missoula Electric Co-op. Thank you to them. Thank you to our title sponsor, the Good Food Store, and our storyteller sponsor, Clearwater Credit Union. Thanks to our accessibility sponsor, Garden Mother. And thank you to our media sponsors, Missoula Broadcasting Company, Gecko Designs, Sushi Hana, True Food Missoula, and MissoulaEvents.net. And we have got 2 in-kind sponsors to thank: Joyce of Tile, and she's booking into March, and Float Missoula. So thank you to all of them, and when you frequent these businesses, please thank them for their support of live storytelling in Missoula. And thank you for being here tonight. Like I said earlier, the next show has been announced. It's at December 15th at the Wilma. We are looking for storytellers, and everyone in this room has a story, and we all have the ability to tell it to our communities. So if you would like to tell a story, you can go to tellussomething.org, click Tell a Story to learn all about it. The pitch number is there, and we'd love to have you apply. We are about to head into intermission. The merch table will be open. You can make donations. We are a 501c3, so if you decide you want to make a tax-deductible donation, you can do that. Intermission will be 10 minutes. When we come back, audience participation. Thank you all so much. We'll see you in 10 minutes. Welcome back. I'd like to introduce you to my friends Lauren and Ryder. They are going to take us through this next portion of the evening. Thank you.
Something I've let go of. My pre-pregnancy, pre-baby body. Welcome, dear Fupa. You're here to stay as a loving reminder of my beautiful daughter. I love both of you dearly. Love, Mama.
This is either an incredible coincidence or it is written by Hazel's mother. Letting go. When I let go of my fears and allowed my kids to go back to a local sledding hill after my daughter tacoed herself under the back of a pickup truck and escaped death or decapitation, because sledding is so much fun for them, ... I also just stay home so I don't have to watch.
I have spent the better part of my life pursuing a career in the music industry. I have toured nationally with an all-women's punk folk band, worked as a stagehand for almost 10 years before going back to school, where I received a BA in digital arts. By 2015, I had climbed the career ladder, and I had become the woman behind the soundboard. In 2017, I became the technical director for 2 concert venues in Salt Lake City. Later that year, I had to walk away from it all. The sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle had taken its toll, and I had become the thing I feared most, my father, the alcoholic. After 2 suicide attempts, I checked myself into rehab. I'm 39 years old, and my life is just beginning. I am a graduate student here in media arts. I have finally let it all go. All of my failures, my shame, have turned out to be a gift, one I share regularly with others battling addiction and mental health. Letting go, starting over, getting sober, those are my biggest accomplishments, and I can't wait for the unknown. Today is the only day that matters. Today I'm free because I let it go.
Robe tied tight, I entered the art studio. A room full of older women, paintbrushes in hand, stared back at me. They adjusted their easels as I stepped up on the platform. I took a deep breath, looked out into the room, and let go of my robe.
Had to let go of it all to become roommates with my 97-year-old mom. Due to COVID, my mom and I became roommates. We moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment in a senior building. My mom needed to be surrounded by her familiar furniture and belongings, so I let all of mine go. I have consolidated my belongings into a bedroom and drawer in the bathroom. So refreshing. Also, I have the best roommate ever.
Two weeks before my wedding, and 2 of my friends got into a fight at my bachelorette party. One gave me the ultimatum that if the other was still invited to the wedding, that she wasn't coming. I told her I'd miss her, but I don't. Haven't seen her since, and I've been married over 8 years. Some folks you just gotta let go.
What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. I'm turning 60 this year, reflecting on my life so far. That phrase, so often spoken by my mom, rings so true looking back. She passed in 2001 after battling COPD for many years. I miss her wisdom, but I'm so grateful for the many strengths that she passed on to me, and me on to my kids. I've suffered other losses since: a child who chose an unsafe path, a marriage to an alcoholic, another child who sustained a traumatic brain injury at 15, the loss of the love of my life after far too short of a time. In this reflection, I realize I am strong.
I was 5 years old and my hands were sweaty as I frantically banged on the only bathroom door of my kindergarten classroom. The door was locked. My panic began to grow. I started to tense and cross my legs in the odd position one only does when they are a moment away. Could bear it no longer. The moment came, and I let go.
I let go of biting my fingernails. Not intentionally. I just agreed I think I got too lazy to bite them. Now they grow until they are too long, and I am too lazy to clip them. When they got too long to play guitar, I finally do it. Other than sheer laziness, I cannot offer any other explanation.
I've let go of the East Coast, considering I'm from Massachusetts, and all family, including extended, lives between Maine and Pennsylvania. I used to imagine moving back there and raising a family close to my parents, but honestly, the good reasons I moved away. My partner and I both love Montana and big outdoor spaces, and this summer, while visiting back home, I finally let go of the East Coast and embraced my new home in Montana.
Just before our 18th wedding anniversary, I found out that my husband had been unfaithful. Over the next 6 years, I tried to pull myself esteem by the bootstraps and keep going. Finally, I realized that I could never live a happy life with someone I could not trust, so I let him go. I am a smart, independent woman who is not afraid to stand on her 2 feet.
Yes, it did take me 30 years, but at long last, I let go of my husband. I didn't realize what a toxic situation we had, but now that he's gone, my house is peaceful, my kids are happy, and I can breathe again. Better late than never, right? Hallelujah.
I was in my 20s and so excited to finally buy a new car. It was a 2015 Kia Rio with low miles for being a few years old. Life, however, decided I did not need this car. 2 years later, after owning it, I was rear-ended. Fast forward 3 months, I get my car back only to be rear-ended again. Fast forward a year, this time I'm sideswiped. Clearly, this car is crap, and I am not meant to have it. I jokingly want to sell it on October 31st for $6,666.
Thank you, Ryder and Lauren. How's everybody doing tonight? You having fun? Yeah, good, good. Our next storyteller, Kate Wilburn, cherishes wild land and is keenly aware of legacy across generations. Kate's life terrain is diverse, from engineering and carpentry to single parenting, permaculture design, and teaching. She's found in Missoula a place to show the beauty and practicality of living simply, of creating an urban yard that is a vibrant ecosystem of perennial food for people, birds, bees, and other wild things all at the same time. She seeks green wildness in a neighborhood like a village, even in a city. Please welcome Kate Wilburn.
I'm glad I can see my friends in the second and third row. This is pretty weird. Okay, so step into my kitchen with me. On the cherry countertops, there are 2 jars of beans. Every morning, I take a bean from the jar labeled 10 years, 10 good years, days left, and I move it to the other jar labeled 10 good years, days past. I've been doing this for 3 years with my friend Joseph. It's an amazing thing to watch the days of one's life pass a bean at a time. Here we are in my small old house in Missoula. It was pretty sad until I remodeled it, and now it's cozy and beautiful. Looking around, you'll see right away how much I love wood. The hemlock, fir trim, the raised panel fir doors, those cherry countertops, the maple kitchen cabinets, the old growth Douglas fir floor underneath that's original and that I didn't know was there until I unearthed it from layers and layers of goop. So you would be also able to see, I think, how much I like the quality of things. It's small and simple, this house, but everything is well done. And if you looked out to the back side of my lot and saw the old, ugly shed, you would wonder and be mystified, why the heck has she let that thing stand? It's a love story. Not with the shed, but with the small timber frame that's sheltering inside. I learned the art of timber framing as a young woman, and I love it as much as I love wood, because it's like creating a beautiful, large piece of furniture that is going to become a home or another building. Timber frames use big, massive pieces of wood, polished and carefully cut with strong joints that hold them together like dovetails. You might have seen a dovetail if you've ever pulled the drawer out of an old, well-made dresser. The front is attached to the side with these amazing triangular joints. Those are the dovetails. And they're not only beautiful, but they're strong. So let's go back to the shed and the tiny timber frame. It's the 6th one I've cut and designed in my life, and that was 30 years ago. Back then, I was married to an auctioneer, and our home was pretty chaotic. So I imagined a quiet refuge back behind the house. Unfortunately, the marriage ended before I got the timber frame finished and standing. By then, not only had I invested cash and an incredible amount of careful, painstaking work, but also a fair amount of fondness, and I chose to move it with me. The next place that found us was a small home in North Carolina, and I thought it would be a perfect screen porch. Unfortunately, the tiny timber frame and I ran amok of the HOA rules. Oh well. When I became a nomad, I thought that was the perfect ending at last, because it's only 8 feet by 12 feet, this tiny timber frame, and it fits really super well on a trailer to pull down the road. The deal, though, is that the rafters are 14 feet long, and that's to make good overhangs on either side to shade the walls, but it's way too wide for highway safety. It means that all this pile of lovely wood with intricate joints has been, so far, is a little building waiting to be a building. Every time I moved, I checked in with myself. Do I still have hopes for this little critter in me? Yeah, I do. So I've moved it from Idaho to Virginia to North Carolina to California to Idaho again, and finally to Montana. This is the year. Finally, I've got the plans, I've got the permits. There's some 220-volt electrical work involved, and it's a little bit dangerous, but it's simple, and my friend Mike and I are going to do it. Then he calls. His master electrician brother has a sudden emergency, and he's not going to be available in case something goes wrong. It's a catalyst. It's actually one of several, but I don't have time to tell you the rest of them. So I ask myself, is it time to throw in the towel on this? I don't want to. I can so clearly see it nestled in my backyard, these hand-carved knee braces arching around windows where beautiful patchwork curtains hang that Mom and I stitched together. So many years ago, and I've saved them all this time for this building. But other possibilities whisper. There are other big dreams that I've held forever. I feel the preciousness of time, and I know that when I get real, this project is at least a 9-month project to bring to completion. So, here tonight with you, I'm going to take a deep breath. I might cry a little bit. I think it's time for me to stop building things. It's time to leap into the unknown of these other dreams. It's time to look for a new owner for this small building and for a different ending to the love story. I don't have any clue how this will unfold, and I don't have any idea how many beans of strong, healthy life remain to me. My friend Ruth just died. So, I'm ready to leap into the unknown of other dreams, and I'm letting this one go.
Thank you, Kate. Let's see. Our next storyteller is the executive director of a brand new nonprofit called Tell Us Something. Mark Moss hails from Missoula, Montana. He lives on the historic north side with his lifelong partner, Joyce, and their perpetual kitten, Ziggy. Please welcome Mark Moss. I learned how to drink coffee when I was 17, working midnight shift at a grocery store in Ohio, much like the Orange Street Food Farm. Working third shift became something that I really enjoyed. The crew, I don't have the time to tell you how awesome they were and how weird they are still. But in those days, there were no 24-hour grocery stores. And so at 9 o'clock, we'd all shuffle in, lock the doors, and they would put coffee on, and I would drink Coca-Cola or water. Because I hate the taste of coffee at 17. And eventually, I got injured on the job, and I had to start drinking coffee. That's another story that I'm not telling you tonight. Tonight, I'm telling you about my love affair with third shift. And when I moved to Bozeman, Montana, I got another third shift job at a little copy shop called Kinko's. Kinko's doesn't exist anymore, right? It got bought out by some other company, so I can use the name. It's not product placement anymore. And third shift at the Bozeman Kinko's was great because, like every Kinko's, it was located on or near a university campus. And when I was working there, I would meet all sorts of folks, and the architecture students were like frantic, like outside chain smoking, waiting for their copies to be done, coming in building these intricate models out of foam core. And I was like, that's gonna be really expensive. I'm thinking in my mind, they come up and they come to pay, and the bill's like $250. And I know that they're students, and I ask them, like, are you a student? And they're like, yeah, I'm great. And so I ring them up for $75, and they're like, what? And I'm like, student discount? And they're like, okay, thank you. When I worked third shift at the Kinko's in Akron, I met a lot of interesting folks, also on a university campus, but the urban environment of the University of Akron was much different than the university, or the Bozeman campus, whatever they're called. Go Grizz, I guess. So I'd meet all kinds of folks, homeless folks coming in to stay out of the cold. There was a strip club about 4 blocks away, and so the strippers would come in, and one of them would like sit up on the machine and copy her ass. Zzz, zzz, zzz. And I'm like, hey, that's great, clean the glass. And if you break it, you bought it. And she's like, don't worry, honey. And like Big Wayne would show up, and Big Wayne ran the strip club, and he'd like make these little coupons to get in for free. So, really interesting folks. But at the Bozeman Kinko's, the architecture students weren't the only interesting folks coming in. There was a woman that came in all the time, and she sort of shuffled in. Older woman in her 50s, right? Mousy looking woman, really grumpy. She's like 5'2", sort of disheveled looking, super grumpy, and she'd come in. And in those days, when you came into the copy shop, there was like a little key counter. Remember those blue key counters? And plug it in the machine, and it counts off. I see you nodding. Counts off how many copies. And she'd make like 4. She'd make like 4 copies and come in to pay. And I did everything I could think of to try to reach her and talk to her. And she was ignored. She would never say a word to me. And I'm trying to think of whatever I can think of to try to make a connection with her. And I say, hey, sweetheart. And I start flirting with her. She doesn't want that. She doesn't, nobody does. So then I'm mean to her, right? She like walks up to pay and I walk away. Ignore her. She doesn't care. She like slams that thing on the counter, like. Then I'm like overly nice to her. Is everything to your liking this evening? You know, nothing. When I was a kid, you know, Michael was telling that story about Penny learning to ride a bike. I remember learning to ride a bike at a Blazing Bullet, a Huffy with the banana seat and, you know, the lightning bolt down the side. And a sissy bar in the back. I didn't have the cool backpack that Penny has. And my dad would like hang on to the back and you know, just like Michael, let go without me knowing. And I wrecked a lot. And because like, who needs training wheels? Like, I'm a boy. But I also like to cry and scream and yell when I got hurt. And, you know, my dad was like, boys don't cry, suck it up. You know, and I would cry louder. And my aunt, the cool aunt, was like, that really must hurt. And I'm like, yeah, it does. But I would stop crying. And I was thinking of that moment when this woman came in again, super grumpy. And I said, you seem kind of grumpy. She goes, what? I said, are you grumpy? She starts looking around. She just heard me. You know, the machines are buzzing and, you know, like, so I'm like, I got to let go of that work, and now I'm in it. I'm committed to this. And I start to think about the bike, you know, and my aunt validating me and, like, acknowledging, like, that must suck. And so I said, you know what I do when I'm grumpy? I copy my face. And she's like, what? And I've never done that before. And so I, like, take her by the hand. Put your head on the glass. Close your eyes. Don't go blind. Zzz, zzz. And she's like, hey. And she like pulls the thing up, grabs it, and she starts laughing. I'm like, this is great. She goes, can we do it again? I was like, yeah. She goes, we should make a bigger one. So I changed the size, 11 by 17. She's like, you should have one too. So we make two. She's like, I'm going to do this some more. I'm like, great. I got to go back to work. The machines back there aren't running anymore. And if the machines aren't running, I'm going to get in trouble. So knock yourself out. I'll see you in a few minutes. So she's like there for 5 minutes, like, making copies of her face, enlarging, making them really small, different sizes of paper. She comes back. She comes to pay. And she's laughing. And I'm like, what's your name? And she goes, my name's Ruby. I said, Ruby, I'm Mark. Why are you so grumpy? And the copies are on me. Like, put your purse away. She worked at the airport. Second shift, I guess, because she would always come in around 2 or 3. This is before 9/11, so no TSA. So I don't know what she did at the airport. But apparently, whatever it was, at the end of shift was pretty slow. And so she was writing letters to her son every night. And he wasn't returning her letters. And he wasn't returning her phone calls. And there was no texting in 2000. And she's grumpy. And I said, that sounds really lonely. And she goes, it sucks. And she stopped coming in. I don't know why. And what I'm hoping is, because she said, I'm going to use these face copies as stationery to send to my son. And I didn't say this, but I thought, are you Catholic? Because that's a classic guilt trip. But I didn't say that. Something my mom would pull. She didn't come back in. And what I'm hoping is the reason she didn't come back in is because she was writing those letters to her son, and he was seeing her, and he was remembering her. and he called her, and he wrote her back. And that's all of us want, is to be seen and heard and validated. Thanks, Mark. Our next storyteller is Amy McAllister. She comes from a strong and loving family and has lived in Missoula for 45 years. Amy loves the variety of events offered in Missoula. She was a school teacher for 32 years and has many friends who will probably be shocked that she is sharing her story tonight. Please welcome Amy McAllister.
Both my parents passed away about a few years ago, and they were both 93 when they passed away, and actually doing really well until they hit about 91. My mom was still going to jazzercise classes, and my dad was playing golf and meeting up with his friends. But at 91, it seemed like everything kind of started to fall apart. And my brother and sister and I all lived in Missoula, and my parents lived in Billings, and it seemed like every other week, one of us was going down there for something. There was broken shoulder, broken rib, sepsis, some minor surgeries, furnace going out. So we tried everything we could to get my parents to move to Missoula, and they absolutely would not do it. They insisted on living in their own home, and they wanted to stay there. So they converted their basement into an apartment and hired a full-time caretaker. And then they had hospice and some other organizations come in. And so they were able to stay in their own home and pass away there. So it was about mid-November of 2018, and we got a call from the hospice nurse that my mom wasn't doing very well. And they said, if you want to see her before she passes away, you need to come down to Billings. So it actually took about 4 days for all of us to get to Billings, but we did, and we were able to spend Wednesday with my mom, and then that night she passed away. So my dad, at that time, was doing pretty well. We spent Thanksgiving with him, and he actually came up to Missoula for Christmas. But I think when he got back to Billings in January, he just was done. And I think what happens a lot of time when people have been together, spouses have been together for so long, my parents were married for over 70 years. When one passes away, the other one passes away soon after. So this was the middle of January now, and we get the same call. It's a Friday afternoon, and we get the call from the hospice people that say, your dad is not doing very well, and if you want to see him, you should come to Billings when you can. And they said, but his vitals are pretty good, so he should be okay for a few days. Well, this time, my sister, Jane, and I decide we're going to go the next day. It's Friday afternoon. We're going to leave on Saturday. My brother's out of the country. But that night, about 8:30, we got a call, and my dad had died. So the next day, we leave for Billings, and I am super upset. My mom had the whole family around when she passed away. My dad had nobody there. So we're talking on the way down to Billings, and I say, I just feel like I need to say goodbye to Dad. And Jane, my sister, says, I want to remember him how he was at Christmas, and I don't want to see him. But I said, I think at the funeral home, maybe I should go in and say goodbye. So we get to Billings and go over to the funeral home, and we meet Matthew, our mortician. And Matthew looks like, or reminds me of Lurch from the Addams Family. He's tall, thin, kind of gaunt looking, but his most distinctive attribute is the way he talks, like Lurch, real low and slow. So he leads us into the office, and we go over all the cremation arrangements. And I asked Matthew, I said, Matthew, where's my dad now? And he goes, he's in the back room. Do you want to see him? And I said, well, Matthew, I don't know. I said, I don't think I've ever seen a body in a funeral home before. Is it going to look like my dad? And he said, oh, yeah, he'll be a little pale, and his cheeks will be a little sunken, but it'll look like your dad. So I said, okay, if you're sure. And he goes, oh, it'll be fine. It'll look like your dad. So my sister leaves, and Matthew says, can you give me about 30 minutes to get him ready? So I go out into the lobby, the waiting room, and I'm upset, but there's two things to distract you. There are two things to read. These big, giant brochures that have funeral packages and caskets, or the penny saver. So I grab the penny saver because I want nothing to do with the funeral stuff, and I start reading the jokes and doing the trivia. You know, who played Laura Petrie on Dick Van Dyke Show? Oh, I know that one, you know. And Matthew comes to get me, and he takes me back to this big, long, dark, creepy hallway with these 3 giant doors about the size like Let's Make a Deal doors. And he leads me into the room and quietly backs out and closes the door, and I go up to the bed, and I freak out because this guy looks nothing like my dad. And I run out and I say, Matthew, that's not my dad. And he looks at me real sadly and goes, that's your dad. And I said, well, it doesn't look anything like my dad. And he goes, that's your dad. So, okay, my friends keep telling me how unobservant I am. And so I go back into the room and I go up to the bed, and nothing. Now I really start studying my dad. Now this man is shorter than my dad. He's thinner than my dad. He has different coloring. And now I'm doing 360s around the bed, trying to find something familiar, age spots I've never seen before, a bump in his nose. And I go to the top of his head, and my dad had a pretty full head of hair, and this guy has a couple strands of hair. I'm thinking, can a body lose all its hair in 18 hours? So now I'm convinced, and I go back out, and I find Matthew, and I say, Matthew, that is not my dad. And again, he looks at me real sad. That's your dad. And I said, you're telling me that man in there is Bill McAllister? And I see him go, just a second. And he goes into the back room, and he comes back out, and he says, that's not your dad. I said, I know, that is what I've been trying to tell you. So he said, can you give me about 20 more minutes? So I go back out in the lobby, finish I Dream a Genie and Dick Van Dyke trivia questions, and he comes to get me, and he says, I'm really sorry about this. This has never happened before. This is really your dad. I can prove it. There's a tag on his toe. So I say, no, just let me in and go see my dad. So I went into door number 2 for the 3rd time, and I go up to the bed, and there's my dad. He's looking a little pale, and his cheeks are a little sunken, but it's definitely my dad. So I say my goodbyes to him, how much I love him and appreciated everything he did for us. And I walk home from the funeral home, and about halfway home, I just burst out laughing, thinking, this could only happen to me. So I get home, and my sister and some other relatives are there, and some friends of my dad's, and my sister, Jane, comes up to me and says, all concerned, oh, how did it go? And I just start laughing. And she goes, what happened? So I tell them all the story of what happened in the funeral home, and especially my dad's friends were just livid. And I said, really, it's okay. It brought a little levity to this really, really hard situation for me, and it's okay. So the next morning, I have the Billings Gazette, the morning paper, and I'm going through the paper, and I open up to the obituaries, and who's in there? My other dad. So I yell for Jane. I go, Jane, come here. This is the guy they were trying to pass off as dad. So she comes in and looks at his picture. We read all about him. His name, I think, was Mr. Santori. It sounded like he had a really nice life, really nice family, which we were happy to read about. So I've told this story multiple times to a lot of different people, and some people think it's funny, some people are appalled, but I really do believe that the person that would have gotten the biggest kick out of this story and would have laughed the hardest would have been my dad.
Thank you, Amy. Our final storyteller this evening is Rachel Guin. Rachel Guin hails from the gorgeous, lush state of New Jersey, in a county where there are more cows than people. This is perhaps why it took her so long to learn the art of being cultured. She's lived in Missoula for 25 years and loves playing in the mountains and the rivers of Montana with her partner Jeremy and their pups, along with all of her dear friends in Missoula. She socializes for a living because she is a social worker. Please welcome Rachel Guin.
Great. All right, so it's 1983. I'm 13 years old. And my family has a lot of international friends, and I'm not going to get into how we have these international friends, but we do. So we have 3 Israeli boys staying with us, and another family of Persian friends who just came from Iran. It was 1983. There was a lot of escaping from the Ayatollah Khomeini. So my mom decides we're going to hit New York City. And so the ages of the 3 Israeli boys are 10 to 16, and of this lovely Iranian family, it's 9 to 16 with their lovely mother Mary. And I'm going, and my sister Jane, who is 16, and my mom. So we hit New York City, and New York City for my mom is all about shopping. Yeah. And so we go, and we're down on the Lower East Side, going to all the really funky, cool places, and then we hit Midtown. We, of course, go to, Bloomingdale's and FAO Schwartz, and that was kind of around when the movie Big came out, and they had, the piano on the floor, so we're all playing on the piano. It was super, super fun. And we go to this amazing store called Fiorucci's, which back then was the bomb in New York City. And we are shopping bag and shopping bag and shopping bag. And my mom decides for some reason what would really top this day is if we go to a ballet at Lincoln Center. So we go in, it's Saturday night. She goes in and she gets tickets. And the only seats that are left are in the 9th row in Lincoln Center in the orchestra. So I don't know if any of you have been to Lincoln Center and where the ballet is. It's actually kind of like this, except instead of 900 people, it has 2,500 people, and it has 6 layers of balconies all around, red velvet seats. It's super fancy, super plush. And so the woman looks at us, and she says, well, okay, well, there are these 9th row seats. If you want them, yeah, sure, because, cash is cash. So my mom says, they're ours. We decide to go across the street to a restaurant. It is the coolest restaurant ever. It was really known in New York City because all the waiters and waitresses roller skate. So for us kids, it was awesome to like have them roller skating by and have their pizza coming, and it was very, very cool. Now, this is about the time when I think I started realizing that I couldn't eat certain foods, and I think pizza was one of them. And so we, finished with our meal, and we go back into Lincoln Center, and the lobby is just filled with lovely, lovely people, dripping with pearls and diamonds, and Chanel is over there, and Yves Saint Laurent is over there, and Gucci is there. I mean, there is bow ties and tuxedos and crushed velvet dresses, and we are in jeans and t-shirts with big brown bag and FAO shorts bag, and there's 10 of us, and we are just like this ragtag bunch kind of coming in. And we go to the, top of the theater, and the usher looks at us as if like we must be going to the wrong seats. And he says, yes, you are in the 9th row orchestra. So he walks us in, and we really fumble to get into all our seats because we have bags, and people around us are just like, looking, and, we're kids and whatever. So we kind of fumble along, get in there, and I start to feel this grumbling in my stomach. And I'm like, I really got to go to the bathroom. And so you got to remember it's 1983 in New York City. It was not a safe town. At all. My mother had the fear of God put into us whenever we went into New York City. You did not wear jewelry, you looked straight ahead, she marched really, really fast, and we chased after that mama duck as if we were all little baby ducks, afraid to get lost. And so, I start whispering down the seats, hey, anyone have to go to the bathroom? Anyone want to go to the bathroom? And no one wants to go to the bathroom with me. The line is really, really long. But remember, my mother, we weren't allowed to go in elevators alone. You weren't allowed to go to the bathroom alone. You weren't allowed to do anything alone in New York City. And why we would go in to this glorious place to be scared shitless was always a mystery to me. So, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, we're not going to be able to go to the bathroom. And, the Israeli boys are sitting next to me. It's Amit, Eldad, and Itai. And then on this side is Rachel, Roya, Rebecca, and Mary, our Persian friends, and then my mother and my sister Jane. So, we got Hebrew over here, we got Farsi over here, and all of a sudden, Mary and Roya and Rachel are, talking about the person in front of them, and they're, speaking in Farsi, and all of a sudden the man turns around and says, in Farsi, if you're going to talk about someone in front of them, you really should make sure they don't know your language. And what they were saying was, ooh, look at the egghead in front of you. His head is so perfectly round. And, here we come in, this ragtag bunch, and so we're insulting the other patrons and everything. So the ballet starts, and I, of course, more and more have to go to the bathroom. I am grumbling. There's grumbling. And I'm like, oh, God, okay, I'm just going to sit here. It's going to be okay. The ballet starts. This ballet, by the way, it was not just any Saturday night. It was George Balanchine, who was the father of American ballet. He had passed in April of 1983. And this was his big production, Bugoku, which was a Japanese ballet, not just any Japanese ballet. It was so perfect for a bunch of prepubescent children to be seeing because it was an erotic sexual fantasy. So as if we weren't really out of place already, the curtain rises, and on either side of the stage are these big sumo wrestler men in diapers playing these flutes, which were kind of like didgeridoos, but they weren't. They were just these big flutes. And the ballet is a very atonal ballet, very uncomfortable sounding, But what was even more uncomfortable is they started blowing the flutes, and their cheeks would shake, and their boobs would shake, and their bellies shook, and their legs shook, and boy, we just ripped out with laughter. I mean, this was just too much for like prepubescent or puberty full children, right? The next thing that happens, okay, it's an erotic fantasy. I just want you to remember that, with which, the costumes were minimal, and the next thing that happens is like, the ballerina comes out, and the first scene is about like the man and the woman meeting each other. And, yeah, we've seen female figures. We're used to that in America culture, no big deal. But then the man comes out, and he has no shirt on, and he has these really tight white tights. And you can see his perfectly firm buttocks and his male package. And we just start like absolutely laughing hysterically, like ridiculously hysterical. And people are like poking my mother saying, "Can you please control your children? Can you please control your children? This is not appropriate." And so we're laughing so hard that Amit sitting next to me lets out a little toot. And I start laughing hysterical, and I slip down in my seat, and I let out the biggest fart ever. This was like a bass tuba fart. It was so loud. If you can imagine that when I let this fart out, every seat in Lincoln Center, all 6 rows of the balcony, leaned forward like this sound that went whoosh. And everybody is looking, and they're like looking at me, and not only that, the conductor went like this. And I shrink into my seat, and I am like, "You did it in your sleep, you did it in your sleep, you did it in your sleep." And people are like, "I think it was the little girl that farted. I think it was the little girl that farted." And I am just melting. I'm 13 years old. You just don't even want to be seen when you're 13. And here, 2,500 people in Lincoln Center heard me. The conductor goes on. He continues with the ballet. I'm not quite sure any ballet in Lincoln Center has ever been stopped by a fart before. So it's intermission, and we, kind of are walking out with all our bags, and I'm telling you, everyone is like, "Yeah, it was definitely the little girl. That little girl farted." And we roll out the pathway of the auditorium, and we are dying, and I'm dying, and we just collapse in the lobby, all of us with our bags, laughing hysterically, and my sister Jane, who's very mature, 16 years old, comes up to me and she says, "If you're gonna make it in high school," she really said this, "if you're gonna make it in high school, you are gonna have to learn how to squeeze your buttocks tighter." That's what happens when you let it go at Lincoln Center.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you to all of our sponsors, and especially thank you to the storytellers, all of them. Susan Schenker, Margie Cates, Michael LaPointe, Hazel Wright, Kate Wilburn, Mark Moss, Amy McAllister, and Rachel Guin. Hazel, where are you? Come on. Thank you all so much for being here. Please consider pitching your story for the It's the Little Things show. Go to tellussomething.org to learn more and get your tickets for the show at logjampresents.com. Thank you all. Have a fantastic evening. We'll see you in December.